chairs here tonight, and I'd like to recognize, we have Kevin Williams from Sullivan County. Jason Salzman from Adair. There he is. Kathy Austin from Macon. There she is. Charles Coatney from Mobley. Brett Kerr from Knox County. Kay Hoflander from Lafayette. She's an actual dignitary in the Republican Party. And David Pence of Monroe. So as I mentioned before, I'm the state senator for this district. I spend a lot of time going around listening to people. I've had to shut off the news because there's nothing good about it. But the point I want to make is, I think that, we need someone to go to Washington who's not totally bought off by a special interest there. And I know that that gets to be kind of an overused term, but we really do have that. And so when this race first started, I looked around at all the people running. I thought they were, all these, they were decent people, most of them. And the first thought that went through my mind was, some of you have been in Washington quite a while, but I don't see you doing anything about some of the terrible things that have happened in the last couple of years. I mean, we really have turned from a kind of a free country that chooses our own way to one that, this gigantic, I call it gangster government, and it is gangster government. They're going to tell you, the choices they'll make for you, and by golly, you better like it. So, we had lots of problems through the COVID situation, which I understand people didn't really know how to handle that. But my point here is, we had one person out of that gigantic group of people running who actually did stand up to people and did take action to people and who said, this is outside the bounds of law, and we are a nation of laws, and I'm here to make sure that we protect the rights, responsibilities too, but the rights of the American citizens, and certainly the citizens of the state of Missouri. That is why I supported Eric Schmidt to be our next U.S. Senator, and that is why we are going to send Eric Schmidt to Washington to fight against all of this corruption and gangster government, and I give you Eric Schmidt.
I'm going to go over here. You guys ready to take this country back? Absolutely. It's time, isn't it? It's time. And first of all, I want to thank Cindy, because when you're running in a primary and it's a crowded field, those people who come out early and support you, it means a lot, because she stuck her neck out and she represents a very important part of the state to me. This is the part of the state where I met my wife. I went to school in Kirksville. And so, I've got a soft spot in my heart for this beautiful part of our state. And I usually start out by saying, right now as your Attorney General, my job is pretty straightforward. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I sue Joe Biden, and then I go home. And then I get up the next day and I do it all over again. And that's actually not an exaggeration. I wish we weren't as busy as we are, but we are. And I'm running for the United States Senate. If you really want to cut through all the platitudes, to represent our values in Washington and defeat socialism. Because that is what's on the march right now. What we're seeing right now, this is the most radical agenda we have ever seen. And every week there is something new. And we need reinforcements right now in Washington to save America. And I don't mean that rhetorically. I mean the things that we believe in, the country that we hold dear, the freedoms that we value, are all on the line. They really are, in a way that they never have been before. And so, we've got a big, important election. And you hear it a lot, that this is the most important election of our lifetime, right? Well, it is. And to put it in even further context, it's more than just the most important election of our lifetime. In my view, we are entering the most important decade in our country's history since the Civil War. Because we are being asked and are going to be asked questions that we've never been asked before. Or if we have, it's been a very, very, very long time. Like, are we going to remain the freest country in the history of the world or not? You know, do we believe that we're born with certain rights, like that come from God, by the way, and that government is just our project to protect those rights, not to infringe upon those rights? So there's a lot of folks right now, especially in Washington, who have that backwards, that think that we need the permission from the government to defend ourselves, right? That's what this great country was all about. The founding was, what the founders said was, that everybody had it backwards, that our rights come from God, and that we believe in individual rights. We don't believe in this country of some sort of collectivist model like they do in a lot of communist countries across the world. But that's the kind of agenda and ideology that is on the march right now in this country. You know, are we a country that still believes that the Second Amendment protects that God-given right to protect yourself and your family, inside and outside your home? And not just, by the way, for hunting and target practice, but to defend against tyranny. That's why that is the Second Amendment. You know, are we a country that thinks we ought to have a ministry of truth? I mean, this is happening in the United States of America. That the government, the federal government, set up something called the Disinformation Governance Board to decide what you can say, when you can say it. If you say the wrong thing, you're deplatformed, you're censored, investigated. I mean, this is the kind of stuff you'd expect to read about the Soviet Union 40 years ago. But it's on the march right now in Washington. You know, are we a country that believes in having a secure border? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of being lectured about the importance of the sovereignty of other countries' borders halfway across the world, but they don't give a darn about what's going on in our southern border. The amount of illegal immigration that's happening in this country, I've been down there twice. The Border Patrol agents have never seen anything like this. And the untold story is the cartels are running the show. They control zones not only across the border, but with human trafficking across the border, the fentanyl that's streaming into our communities and killing our family members. It's all coming because we have a completely open border. And now you have people like Elizabeth Warren talking about granting amnesty to everybody who's come here illegally. That is not what a sovereign country does. That is not what a country that values an America First agenda does. You know, are we going to be a country that thinks we should teach our kids to despise America? That critical race theory should be in our schools, where we divide kids by oppressor and the oppressed. Because that's what's going on. And don't let the Democrats tell you it's not happening, because we've opened up several investigations across the state. And this is not just happening in New York and California. It's not just happening in St. Louis and Kansas City. It's happening in Springfield Public. It's happening in other school districts across the state, where kids are being taught things like, you know, the oppression matrix, and being forced to participate in things called the privilege walk. I mean, this stuff is crazy. And it's not make-believe. It's reality in the heartland. You know, are we a country that believes that somebody like Lord Fauci on high can dictate how we live our lives and shut businesses down and force 5-year-olds to wear masks? Because that's the vision of America that they have. And so for my part, I've been fighting back. As your Attorney General, there's been nobody in the country that's taken on more of these fights than me. And so when it comes to the First Amendment, we launched the first investigation into how big government was colluding with big tech and outsourcing their censorship to silence conservatives. We're in the middle of document production right now. This stuff is nuts, because Fauci, Psaki, and Mary Poppins, or whatever her name was that was running the ministry, I mean, they were telling these big tech companies to deplatform people. That's illegal. That's not supposed to happen. When it comes to the Second Amendment, there was a big important case at the Supreme Court this past session, or this past term, that basically said that in New York, in Missouri, by the way, we're a constitutional carry state, and I voted for that when I was in the state senate, which is why I have an A+ rating from the NRA, and it's supported by all the gun rights organizations. But in New York, you have to go to a bureaucrat and prove that you're at risk before they'll give you a concealed carry permit. Can you imagine that? Showing up and explaining why you need to carry a gun to protect yourself and your family. The Supreme Court struck that down. Missouri led the briefing on that because it's important to our country. It's important to our republic. On illegal immigration, we were the first state to file on the Remain in Mexico policy. We took that to the Supreme Court and we won. We were the first state to file on Title 42, and we took that to the court and we won. And if you think illegal immigration is bad right now, Title 42 accounts for about 50% of all the people who are turned away. So if you think it's bad right now, just double it. You know, you don't have people who are willing to stand up and fight and be called all sorts of names by the Post-Dispatch and the Kansas City Star. That's what you would end up with. Because right now, the only thing stopping all these terrible things from happening are the states. Because the Democrats control every single lever of power in Washington right now. And they are hell-bent on power and control. That's it. It wasn't about science. It was never about the science. It is about power and control and exerting that and punishing their political enemies. Look at what's happened in Mar-a-Lago. The weaponization of the FBI to go after political opponents. Again, this is third world banana republic stuff. The FBI told our rural sheriffs that they were going to audit their concealed carry permits in their systems. And we said, no, you're not in Missouri, you're not. That's illegal. But you got to have somebody who's going to be willing to stand up and do that, because these are fights of your choosing. You don't have to do any of these things. As Attorney General, you can go around the state and do all the ribbon cuttings you want to do, but that's not why I'm in this. I'm in this because I believe in this country. And Missouri was the first state to sue OSHA, which was an agency created to make sure forklifts beep when they back up, when they tried to force the medical procedure on 80 million Americans. We took that case to the Supreme Court and we won. And we need proven conservative fighters right now more than ever. And I mentioned those COVID tyrants. It was our office that sued 47 school districts across the state and told them to knock it off. And we won. But you got to stand up and fight. And that's really what this race is all about. And so we just had a tough primary, a 21-person primary, the biggest, most expensive in the history of our state. But we won by a big margin, and our message isn't going to change. Because those values I outlined, fighting for freedom, for border security, for the next generation, taking on inflation. Because right now, the spending we see in D.C. is completely out of control. Obama and Biden, right? I mean, it's really unbelievable. When you thought it couldn't get bad enough, here we are. But he's declared war on American energy. And that's why we see higher gas prices. That's why the cost of the bill goes up. And not only are we not energy dominant anymore, we actually have a president that's going to Saudi Arabia begging for foreign oil while we're shipping strategic petroleum reserves to China. You couldn't make this stuff up, but it's happening. So those things that we're fighting for, we're going to continue to fight for them. That message isn't going to change in the general election because Missouri is a conservative state, and Missouri wants a fighter. And Missouri wants somebody who's going to stand up to this nonsense in Washington, be unafraid to call it out. And I am not interested, and Cindy alluded to this, I'm not interested in being invited to all the cocktail parties. I'm not interested in being the most popular person in Washington. That's not why I'm running. I look forward to going there and getting home, and coming here and spending time with my family, and representing you, because that's why I'm going there, is to fight for you. So this race, which is 76 days away, I think, Election Day, which is crazy. But once Labor Day, once the calendar turns, most people start tuning into, oh, we have a U.S. Senate race happening now. Oh, and we have two candidates who are running. We've got a Republican and we've got a Democrat. And let me tell you a little bit about my Democrat opponent. She's an heiress. She's a billionaire. She filed for office on the last day, and she's completely out of touch with Missouri. Completely out of touch. She is the 51st vote for all the crazy stuff I just talked about. And we are 2 votes away in the United States Senate. 2 votes away, because we are not having traditional political debates in this country about tax rates and entitlement reform. The Democrats are literally 2 votes away. And we see how reliable those 2 votes are, right? Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. 2 votes away from packing the United States Supreme Court, adding states to the Union, federalizing our elections, and having open borders and amnesty. We are that close, ladies and gentlemen, to the Democrats fundamentally changing this country forever. And as Ronald Reagan said, freedom isn't passed through the bloodstream. It's up to every generation to fight for it. And that's where we're at. That is our charge right now. So for these beautiful kids who are running across this cornfield in this, I mean, you couldn't have a Norman Rockwell painting prettier than this. But if we want those kids to grow up free from indoctrination, be able to speak their mind, protect their families, live the American dream, this election is going to determine the path that we go on as a country. And so are you going to choose the Harris Valentine, who's completely out of touch, who will go along with this radical socialist agenda, or are you going to choose the conservative fighter? Somebody who has had your back every step of the way and will never turn my back on you, because that's what I'm going to do, is to fight for you and to fight for this country. God bless you. I'm asking for your vote. I appreciate you guys all being here. We've got a country to save. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.